The great hall of the Galactic Council was filled with worried voices. Hundreds of alien beings from different worlds sat in their floating chairs, all talking at once. Their translator devices buzzed and clicked as they tried to speak over each other. The air smelled of fear and desperation. Ambassador Veltar from the Meridian Federation stood up slowly. His blue skin was pale, and the patterns on his face showed deep worry. The hall became quiet as he walked to the center platform. His hand shook as he held the data pad that contained the terrible news. "Fellow council members," Veltar began, his voice carrying across the silent chamber. "I bring news that will shake us all. The Zephyrian Empire has conquered another world. That makes 17 peaceful planets they have destroyed in just 3 cycles." A wave of gasps and frightened whispers swept through the assembly. The Zephyrians were known throughout the galaxy as ruthless conquerors. Their biomechanical war machines could crush any army, and their weapons could melt through the strongest shields like they were made of paper. Council leader Thisara clicked her insect-like mandibles nervously. Her compound eyes reflected the holographic display that showed the latest attack. Burning cities, fleeing civilians, and massive alien war machines marching through the ruins. It was a sight that haunted every peaceful species in the galaxy. "What of our defense fleets?" asked Commander Zeflon from the Astari Collective. His tentacles writhed with anxiety as he spoke. Did they not respond to the distress calls? Veltar's patterns grew darker on his skin. They tried. Admiral Kessevar led 3 full battle groups to defend the world of New Harmony. The Zephyrians destroyed them all within 6 hours. Our best ships, our most advanced weapons, our bravest warriors, all gone. The hall erupted in chaos. Representatives jumped to their feet, shouting in dozens of different languages. Some demanded immediate military action. Others called for evacuation of all border worlds. A few suggested surrender to avoid total annihilation. Thisara raised her arms for silence. It took several minutes for the noise to die down. When she spoke, her voice was steady, but those who knew her could hear the fear underneath. "We have tried everything," she said. "Our combined fleets cannot match their firepower. Our energy weapons are useless against their adaptive shields. Our strongest warriors cannot compete with their biomechanical soldiers. We are facing extinction." Dr. Morden, the Council's chief scientist, stood up from his seat. His reptilian features were grim as he accessed his personal data files. "I have analyzed every battle, every weapon test, every tactical engagement. The mathematics are clear. At their current rate of expansion, the Zephyrians will control half the galaxy within 10 cycles. And the other half?" Someone called out from the back. "Will be dead," Morden replied simply. The silence that followed was heavier than the vacuum of space. Every being in that hall knew they were looking at the end of their civilizations. Thousands of years of culture, art, science, and peace were about to be swept away by an empire that saw other species as nothing more than obstacles to remove. Counselor Jenka from the Peaceful Worlds Alliance spoke up. Her voice was barely above a whisper, but in the quiet hall everyone heard her. "There is one option we have not discussed, one species we have not asked for help." Thisara's antennae twitched. She knew what Jenka was about to suggest, and the thought terrified her more than the Zephyrians. "You cannot mean the humans of Earth," Jenka said firmly. "The Deathworlders." The reaction was immediate and dramatic. Half the assembly recoiled in horror. The other half looked thoughtful, desperate enough to consider any option. Earth had joined the Galactic Council only 2 years ago, and their reputation had spread like wildfire through civilized space. Earth was a death world, a planet where the dominant species had evolved through constant violence and warfare, where apex predators hunted in organized packs, where the very environment tried to kill everything that lived on it through storms, earthquakes, volcanoes, and disasters that would end civilizations on other worlds. The humans were different from every other species in the galaxy. They had developed something that other civilizations had never needed, the ability to wage total war. While other species fought for honor, territory, or resources, humans fought to survive. And they had been doing it for millions of years. They are barbarians, hissed Counselor Vextree from the Crystal Worlds. Their entertainment involves watching others fight to the death. Their history is nothing but war after war. They name their children after weapons and warriors. Their planet tried to kill them every day for millions of years, added Representative Corthon. They learned to kill it back. What kind of species does that? Veltar stepped forward again. His skin patterns had changed to show determination mixed with desperation. The kind of species that might be able to stop the Zephyrians. We have tried diplomacy. We have tried our advanced technology. We have tried our superior numbers. None of it worked. He activated his holodisplay, showing images from Earth. Humans climbing mountains that would crush most species. Humans diving into oceans that would dissolve alien flesh. Humans living in deserts that were hotter than some planets' surfaces. Humans thriving in frozen wastelands that were colder than space itself. Look at them, Veltar continued. They are the only species in known space that evolved to be predators and survived their own planet trying to eliminate them. They are the only species that developed weapons before they developed spaceflight. They are the only species that still practices warfare as an art form. Dr. Morden brought up his analysis files again. I have studied human military history. In their past, they fought wars that lasted for years, sometimes decades. They created weapons that could destroy their entire planet. They developed tactics and strategies that no other species has ever needed to learn. Because no other species was insane enough to need them, muttered someone from the crowd. Perhaps, Morden agreed. But that insanity might be exactly what we need now. The Zephyrians have never faced opponents who think like humans. They have never fought against species that see warfare as a science to be perfected rather than a regrettable necessity. Thesara looked around the assembly. She could see the fear in every face, but she could also see something else. Hope. Desperate, terrified hope, but hope nonetheless. If we do this, she said slowly, we must understand what we are asking. We are inviting the galaxy's only apex predator species to unleash their full military capabilities. We are asking them to bring their weapons, their tactics, and their mindset to our conflict. What choice do we have? Veltar asked. The Zephyrians will be at our core worlds within 6 cycles. We can face extinction with dignity, or we can ask the Deathworlders for help. The vote was close, but it passed. As the council session ended, orders were sent across the galaxy to contact Earth. The message was simple and desperate. The galaxy needed help, and humanity was the only species with the skills and mindset to provide it. On Earth, in a facility buried deep beneath the mountains of Colorado, Admiral Kate Morrison received the transmission. She read it twice, then called her staff. Within hours, the greatest military minds of humanity were planning their response to the galaxy's plea for help. The aliens had asked for assistance. They were about to learn that when humans helped, they brought everything they had. Admiral Kate Morrison sat in her command chair deep inside the mountain fortress that housed Earth's defense headquarters. The message from the Galactic Council played on her screen for the 3rd time. Her weathered face showed no emotion, but her fingers drummed steadily on the armrest of her chair. Jake, she called to her aide, Lieutenant Commander Jake Powell. The young officer appeared instantly at her side. Get me General Ryan Torres and Admiral Susan Blake. Tell them we have a situation that requires immediate attention. Within minutes, the 2 senior officers arrived in the secure briefing room. Torres commanded Earth's ground forces while Blake led the Space Navy. Both had fought in the border conflicts that had established humanity's reputation among their new alien neighbors. What do we know about these Zephyrians? Torres asked after watching the alien transmission. His scarred hands folded on the table as he studied the tactical data. Morrison activated the holographic display. Images of Zephyrian war machines filled the air above the conference table. The alien constructs were massive biomechanical nightmares that looked like they had grown rather than been built. Intelligence suggests they're a hive-minded species, she replied. They adapt quickly to energy-based weapons, but they've never faced kinetic warfare. Their entire military doctrine is based on fighting other civilized species who value honor over effectiveness. Blake leaned forward, studying the enemy ships. Their shield technology is impressive, but look at the hull design. They're built for intimidation and energy deflection. I doubt they've ever encountered opponents who simply punch holes through armor plating. Torres smiled grimly. They're about to get a very unpleasant education in human military philosophy. How soon can we deploy? The UES Valkyrie is already loaded with our best equipment, Morrison replied. Captain Lisa Hayes has been waiting for orders. Her crew includes 3,000 of our finest personnel, plus a full Marine contingent. 2 days later, the massive human dreadnought dropped out of hyperspace near Kepler Station, humanity's forward base in Meridian space. The station's alien personnel watched in amazement as the Valkyrie approached. The human ship was unlike anything in the galactic fleet, where alien vessels curved gracefully through space with elegant lines and glowing energy fields. The Valkyrie looked like what it was, a weapon designed by a species that had spent thousands of years perfecting the art of war. Gun turrets bristled from every surface. Missile pods clustered along the hull like mechanical growths. Launch bays for fighter craft and assault shuttles gave the ship the appearance of a floating military base. Captain Lisa Hayes stood on her bridge, watching as the alien delegation prepared to come aboard. Her crew moved with practiced efficiency around their stations. Every person on the ship had been selected for their combat experience and psychological stability. Captain, reported Commander Troy Bennett from the tactical station. The alien observers are requesting permission to board. They seem nervous about our weapon systems. Hayes nodded. Grant permission. Have Dr. Amy Foster meet them at the main airlock. She's better at dealing with civilian concerns than we are. Dr. Foster was the expedition's chief scientist and diplomat. Unlike most of the crew, she had never served in combat, but she understood alien psychology better than anyone else on the ship. The Meridian delegation that came aboard consisted of 3 beings. Ambassador Veltar, whom they recognized from the Council transmission, a science officer named Kethfor, whose pale skin showed patterns of curiosity mixed with fear, and a military advisor called General Siskun, who kept looking around nervously at the human ship's interior. Welcome aboard, the Valkyrie, Dr. Foster said warmly. I know our ship must seem very different from what you're used to. That was an understatement. The corridors of human ships were designed for rapid movement during combat. Blast doors could seal sections instantly. Emergency stations contained weapons and medical supplies. Even the lighting was harsher and more focused than the soft, comfortable illumination preferred by other species. Your weapon systems, Kethivor began hesitantly. They are quite extensive. Commander Bennett joined the group for the tour. His tactical expertise would be needed to explain human military technology to beings who had never experienced total war. This is just the beginning, Bennett replied. Would you like to see our main battery? He led them through the ship to an observation deck that overlooked the Valkyrie's primary weapons. The aliens stared in shock at the massive railgun assemblies that ran the length of the vessel. These launch projectiles at a significant fraction of light speed, Bennett explained casually. Pure kinetic energy. No fancy energy fields or exotic particles, just physics applied with extreme prejudice. General Siskun's translator struggled with some of the technical terms. You propel solid matter as weapons? Among other things, Bennett nodded. We also use explosive warheads, guided missiles, nuclear devices, antimatter charges, and what we call kinetic bombardment systems. The aliens looked confused. In their experience, warfare was conducted with energy beams, force fields, and sophisticated defense systems. The idea of simply throwing very fast, very hard objects at enemies was completely foreign to them. Dr. Foster tried to soften the explanation. You have to understand, humans evolved differently than other species. Our planet forced us to develop practical solutions to survival problems. Sometimes the most practical solution is also the most direct one. They continued the tour, visiting the Marine barracks where Sergeant First Class Danny Rodriguez was conducting weapons training for his squad. The demonstration left the alien observers speechless. Rodriguez held up a standard human assault rifle. This fires armor-piercing rounds at 3,000 meters per second. Effective range is about 800 meters, but we've recorded kills at twice that distance. He switched to a heavier weapon. This is our squad automatic weapon. Rate: a fire 600 rounds per minute. It can penetrate most known armor materials and continue firing for extended periods without overheating. The aliens watched as human soldiers practiced with weapons that could punch through starship hull plating. Each Marine carried enough firepower to equip an entire alien military unit. Kethivor studied the ammunition displays with scientific fascination. These projectiles contain no energy sources. How do they maintain their effectiveness? They don't need energy sources, Rodriguez explained. They work by transferring kinetic energy to the target. The faster they go, the more damage they cause. Simple physics. Colonel Nina Walsh joined the group to explain human ground combat doctrine. Her battle-scarred armor and confident manner impressed even the nervous alien military advisor. The key to human tactics is overwhelming firepower applied precisely where it's needed most, she said. We don't fight fair. We fight to win. General. Siskun looked uncomfortable. Your species seems to approach warfare as a science rather than a regrettable necessity. Because for us, it was science, Walsh replied. For millions of years, everything on our planet was trying to kill us. We learned to kill it back, or we would have gone extinct. That experience taught us lessons that no other species has ever needed to learn. The tour ended in the ship's medical bay, where Dr. Foster hoped to show the more civilized aspects of human military preparation. Even here, the alien visitors were surprised by what they found. The medical equipment was more advanced than most. Civilian hospitals in alien space. Trauma surgery systems that could keep soldiers fighting after injuries that would kill other species. Psychological support systems designed to help humans cope with the stress of extended combat. Research facilities working on ways to repair battle damage to both equipment and personnel. We don't glorify war, Dr. Foster explained. But we understand it better than any other species. When we fight with everything we have, and we take care of our people who do the fighting. As the alien delegation prepared to leave, Ambassador Veltar spoke quietly to Captain Hayes. Are your people truly prepared for what we are asking? The Zephyrians are unlike any enemy you have faced. Hayes looked out through the viewport at the stars beyond. Somewhere out there, an alien empire was crushing peaceful worlds and destroying everything in its path. Her expression was calm, but her eyes held the cold focus of a predator preparing to hunt. Ambassador, she said quietly, the Zephyrians are unlike any enemy they have ever faced either. They're about to learn why humans are the only species that turned warfare into an art form. The message was sent back to Earth within hours. Humanity's answer was simple and direct. They would help. The galaxy's apex predators were going to war. The mining world of Taxi 7 hung in space like a wounded animal. Smoke rose from burning cities while Zephyrian war machines marched through the streets. The planet's small defense fleet had been destroyed within hours of the invasion beginning. Now the alien conquerors were setting up their biomechanical processing plants to strip the world of everything valuable. Warlord Krextai stood in the command center of his flagship, the massive bioship called Devourer of Worlds. His insect-like body was covered in living armor that pulsed with organic energy. Around him, his officers worked at stations that had grown from the ship's walls like tumors. Status report, Krextai commanded, his voice a harsh clicking sound that his subordinates understood through pheromone signals rather than words. The planet's resistance has ended, reported his tactical officer. Our ground forces have secured all major population centers. The harvesting can begin immediately. Krextai felt satisfaction flow through his neural links. This conquest had been easier than most. The planet's defenders had relied on energy weapons and defensive shields, both of which were useless against Zephyrian adaptive technology. Within hours, his biomechanical soldiers had overrun every defensive position. Warlord, called another officer from the sensor station. Unknown ships approaching at high speed. Configuration does not match any known species. Krextai moved to the tactical display. Strange vessels were dropping out of hyperspace at the edge of the system. Unlike the flowing organic designs of most galactic ships, these craft looked angular and aggressive. They bristled with what appeared to be primitive projectile weapons instead of advanced energy systems. Analysis, he demanded. The ships appear to be of human origin, the sensor officer replied. The species recently admitted to the Galactic Council. Intelligence reports suggest they are from a death world, but their technology level is considered primitive. Krextai's mandibles clicked in amusement. Humans were known throughout Zephyrian space as the galaxy's newest members. Their reputation as violent primitives had reached even the Empire's distant borders. The idea that such a backward species would dare challenge Zephyrian military might was almost entertaining. "How many ships?" he asked. 12 vessels. 1 large command ship, and 11 escorts. Total crew estimated at less than 15,000. Krextai had brought 40 ships and over 200,000 biomechanical warriors to conquer Taxis 7. The human force seemed pathetically small by comparison. "Open a communication channel," he ordered. "I will give these primitives one chance to withdraw before we demonstrate Zephyrian superiority." Captain Lisa Hayes stood on the bridge of the UES Valkyrie, watching the tactical display that showed the Zephyrian fleet in orbit around Taxi 7. Her crew worked quietly at their stations, making final preparations for combat. The alien ships were larger than anything in the human fleet, but size wasn't everything in warfare. "Captain," reported Communications Officer Nancy Wright, "the enemy commander is attempting to contact us." "Put him through," Hayes ordered. The main screen showed the image of Warlord Krextai. His alien features were designed to inspire fear in other species. The living armor, the clicking mandibles, the compound eyes that reflected no mercy or compassion. It was psychological warfare, at its most basic level. "Human vessels." Krextai's voice came through the translators as a harsh whisper. "You face the Zephyrian Empire. Withdraw now or be destroyed with the world you have come to defend." Hayes studied the alien commander with the calm expression of someone who had faced death many times before. When she replied, her voice was steady and completely unimpressed. "This is Captain Lisa Hayes of the United Earth Defense Force. You are ordered to cease all hostile actions and withdraw from this system immediately. This is your only warning." Krextai's alien laughter sounded like metal scraping against glass. "You dare threaten the Zephyrian Empire with 12 primitive ships? Our biotechnology has defeated hundreds of advanced civilizations. What can Stone Age barbarians possibly do against us?" Hayes looked around her bridge at her crew. Commander Bennett was running final weapons checks. The helm officer was calculating optimal attack vectors. The communications team was coordinating with the other human ships. Everyone was calm, focused, and ready. "You're about to find out," she replied, and cut the transmission. Hayes activated the fleet communication system. "All ships, this is Valkyrie Actual. The enemy has 40 ships in standard formation around the planet. They're using biomechanical technology with adaptive shields and organic weapons systems. Remember your training. These aren't human opponents, so they won't think like humans. Use that advantage." Lieutenant Colonel Pete Carson commanded the destroyer UES Wolverine. His ship was one of the smaller vessels in the human fleet, but it carried enough firepower to level a city. He studied the enemy formation with the eye of someone who had spent years learning how to kill things efficiently. "Tactical analysis, sir," reported his weapons officer. "Enemy shields appear designed to absorb and redirect energy-based attacks. No evidence of kinetic defense systems." Carson smiled grimly. "Then they're about to get a very unpleasant education. Load sabot rounds in all forward batteries. Target their command ship." The human fleet spread out into what alien observers would have called a chaotic formation. There was no elegant symmetry, no formation that would look impressive in a parade. Instead, the ships positioned themselves to maximize their firing angles and minimize their exposure to return fire. Krextai watched the human deployment with growing confusion. These primitives were not following any recognized tactical doctrine. Their ships moved independently, almost randomly. There was no unified command structure that he could identify and target. "Warlord," his tactical officer reported, "the human ships are charging their weapons systems. Energy readings are unusual." "Unusual how?" "They appear to be using chemical propellants and electromagnetic acceleration rather than energy weapons. The power signatures don't match any known weapons technology." Krextai felt the first stirring of unease. In all his years of conquest, he had never faced opponents who used such primitive methods. Energy weapons were civilized. They could be adapted to, countered, or absorbed. What did you do against enemies who simply threw rocks very fast? The answer came 30 seconds later when the UES Wolverine opened fire. Carson's destroyer launched a salvo of railgun projectiles at nearly 20% of light speed. The tungsten penetrators struck the Zephyrian flagship's shields with the kinetic energy of small meteors. The biomechanical defense systems designed to handle energy attacks simply had no way to cope with solid matter moving at such incredible velocity. The projectiles punched through the shields like they weren't there, continued through the living hull of the enemy ship, and exited the other side trailing plasma and debris. Secondary explosions rippled along the flagship's length as critical systems were severed. "Impossible!" Krextai screamed as his ship shuddered around him. "No primitive weapons should be able to penetrate our defenses." But the human attack was just beginning. The Valkyrie's main batteries spoke next, launching a spread of antimatter-catalyzed nuclear warheads. The missiles were not particularly fast or sophisticated by galactic standards, but they didn't need to be. They simply flew straight at their targets and detonated with the force of small suns. 3 Zephyrian ships vanished in expanding balls of nuclear fire. Their organic hulls and living weapons systems were reduced to component atoms in microseconds. The remaining enemy vessels tried to return fire, but their energy weapons were designed for fighting other civilized species at relatively close range. The human ships fought from much greater distances, using targeting systems that had been developed for combat in Earth's hostile environment. Weapons that could hit targets moving at orbital velocities had no trouble tracking alien vessels that moved in predictable patterns. Colonel Brett Murphy was monitoring the space battle from his position aboard the marine assault ship UES Warrior. His job was to secure the planet's surface once the fleet had dealt with the enemy ships. He watched the tactical display with professional interest as human weapons systematically dismantled the Zephyrian fleet. "Sir," reported his communications officer, "the enemy ground forces are requesting instructions from their command ship." No response. Murphy looked at the main display where the Zephyrian flagship was listing badly and venting atmosphere. "That's because their command ship is busy trying not to explode. Prepare for planetary assault. It looks like we're going to have some scared aliens to deal with down there." The space battle lasted exactly 14 minutes. When it ended, 37 Zephyrian ships had been destroyed or disabled. The 3 survivors fled the system at maximum speed, carrying news of an enemy unlike anything the Empire had ever encountered. Warlord Krextai died when his flagship's biomechanical brain finally succumbed to massive trauma. His last thought was confusion at how primitive stone throwers had defeated the most advanced military force in the galaxy. Captain Hayes watched the fleeing enemy ships disappear into hyperspace. Her crew was already preparing for the next phase of the operation, liberating the planet's surface and dealing with the Zephyrian ground forces. "Status report," she ordered. 6 months after the battle at Taxi 7, the war was over. What had seemed impossible to every galactic civilization had become reality through human military efficiency. The Zephyrian Empire, which had terrorized the galaxy for decades, no longer existed. Warlord Krextai's successor, a smaller Zephyrian called Veskai, knelt in the ruins of what had once been the Empire's capital city. Around him, the biomechanical towers that had grown from the planet's surface lay broken and smoking. Human soldiers in their black combat armor stood guard while construction crews began dismantling the war machines. Admiral Kate Morrison stood before the defeated alien commander. Her weathered face showed no satisfaction in victory, only the tired relief of someone who had seen too much war. Behind her, General Ryan Torres and Admiral Susan Blake waited with the formal surrender documents. "You have destroyed everything," Vesakai whispered through his translator. His insect-like body trembled with shock and disbelief. "Our ships, our cities, our armies. How did primitive creatures accomplish what no civilized species could do?" Morrison looked down at the defeated warlord with something that might have been pity. "Because we're not civilized the way you understand civilization. We're survivors, and survivors do whatever it takes to protect what matters to them." The formal ceremony was broadcast across the galaxy. Representatives from hundreds of worlds watched as the Zephyrian Empire formally surrendered to the combined forces of Earth and its allies. The document was signed in the ruins of the capital, with human weapons standing silent guard over the proceedings. 2 weeks later, Admiral Morrison stood in the Great Hall of the Galactic Council, the same chamber where desperate aliens had begged for human assistance now hosted a very different kind of gathering. The assembled representatives watched her with expressions that mixed gratitude, respect, and barely concealed nervousness. "The Zephyrian Empire is dissolved," Morrison announced to the silent assembly. "Their military forces have been destroyed or converted to peaceful purposes. Their conquered worlds are being liberated and returned to their original inhabitants. The threat that endangered our entire galaxy has been eliminated." Council leader Thyssara rose from her floating chair. Her insect features showed complex emotions as she addressed the human admiral. "Admiral Morrison, the Galactic Council owes humanity a debt that cannot be calculated. Entire civilizations exist today because of your intervention. We must ask, what does Earth desire in return for this service?" Morrison had been expecting this question. She had discussed it with Earth's leadership during the long months of campaign planning. The answer had been unanimous and might surprise the alien representatives. "We want the same thing we wanted when we first joined this council," she replied. "To explore, to learn, and to help protect those who cannot protect themselves. We did not fight this war for conquest or reward. We fought it because it was the right thing to do." Ambassador Veltar, who had first suggested contacting Earth, spoke carefully from his position in the assembly. "Admiral, there are those among us who now fear that humanity will become the new threat to galactic peace. Your military capabilities far exceed anything we have ever seen." The hall fell silent. It was the question that every representative wanted to ask but had been afraid to voice. Earth's demonstration of military power had been both salvation and warning. If humans could destroy the Zephyrian Empire so easily, what would stop them from conquering everyone else? General Torres stepped forward to answer. His scarred face and calm manner had become familiar to alien observers during the war. "Fear is natural," he said. "But look at what we actually did. We could have taken Zephyrian worlds for ourselves. We could have claimed their technology and resources. Instead, we freed their slaves and returned conquered planets to their original owners." Captain Hayes, recently promoted to admiral for her actions during the war, joined the discussion. "Humans understand power and its responsibilities better than most species. We've had thousands of years to learn what happens when strength is used for selfish purposes. It destroys everything, including those who misuse it." Dr. Amy Foster addressed the scientific representatives in the assembly. "Humanity brings more than military capabilities to galactic civilization. Our experience with planetary diversity, our problem-solving methods, our technological adaptability, these can benefit all peaceful worlds. War was never our goal. It was simply a tool we used to preserve peace." The debate continued for hours. Some representatives argued for restrictions on human military activities. Others wanted permanent Earth protection for their worlds. A few suggested that humans should be given special authority to prevent future conflicts before they began. Finally, Counselor Jenka from the Peaceful Worlds Alliance stood to speak. Her small, delicate frame seemed fragile compared to the human officers, but her voice carried clearly through the hall. "I have studied human history since we first made contact," she said. "What I learned surprised me. Yes, they are warriors. Yes, they understand violence better than any other species. But they are also the only species that consistently chooses to fight for others rather than themselves." She activated her personal display, showing images from human history, soldiers risking their lives to save civilians, medical teams working in war zones to help the wounded, engineers rebuilding destroyed cities for people they had never met. "Look at their actions, not their reputation," Jenka continued. "They crossed the galaxy to fight an enemy that posed no direct threat to Earth. They lost thousands of their own people to save aliens they barely knew. They asked for nothing in return except the chance to prevent further suffering." The vote that followed was not unanimous, but it was decisive. Earth would be granted special status as the Galactic Council's primary defense force. Human military bases would be established in key systems throughout Allied space. Most importantly, humanity would be given the authority to intervene in conflicts that threatened galactic stability. Admiral Morrison accepted the new responsibilities with characteristic directness. "We understand what you're asking of us. Earth will stand ready to defend peaceful worlds against any threat, but we will also work to make such interventions unnecessary." The changes that followed reshaped galactic civilization. Human military academies were established on dozens of worlds, teaching other species the concepts of deterrence, rapid response, and overwhelming force. The curriculum was not just about weapons and tactics, but about the psychology of conflict and the importance of strength in preventing war. The Terran Defense Corps became the backbone of galactic security. Their black and silver insignia appeared on ships and bases throughout Allied space. Young aliens who wanted to serve in the defense forces had to pass through human training programs that tested not just their technical skills, but their moral character. Colonel Nina Walsh found herself in charge of one such academy on the world of New Geneva. Her students came from dozens of different species, all learning to think about conflict the way humans did, as something to be prevented through strength, but ended quickly and decisively when prevention failed. The goal of military force is not to win battles, she told her mixed class of alien cadets. The goal is to make battles unnecessary. When every potential aggressor knows that the cost of conflict will be immediate and overwhelming, most of them choose peace instead. The changes went beyond military matters. Human exploration teams spread throughout the galaxy, mapping new systems and making contact with previously unknown species. Human medical teams worked to develop treatments for diseases that affected multiple alien races. Human engineers helped build infrastructure on worlds that had been damaged by war or natural disasters. The former Zephyrian territories became a test case for human reconstruction methods. Instead of simply replacing one government with another, Earth teams worked with local populations to rebuild their societies from the ground up. The biomechanical war machines were converted into construction equipment. Former soldiers became engineers and farmers. Weapons factories became schools and hospitals. Dr. Foster led the sociological reconstruction efforts. Her team studied each former Zephyrian world to understand its original culture and help restore what the Empire had tried to destroy. It was slow, careful work that required patience and understanding rather than force. Winning the war was the easy part, she explained to her staff during one planning session. Building a lasting peace is much harder. We have to help these people remember who they were before the Empire took that away from them. 5 years after the war ended, Ambassador Veltar visited Earth for the first time. He stood in the observation deck of Luna Station, looking down at the blue and white world that had saved galactic civilization. The planet looked peaceful from space, but he knew that appearance was deceptive. Admiral Morrison joined him at the viewport. She was older now, with more gray in her hair and deeper lines around her eyes. The weight of galactic responsibility had changed her, but her core strength remained unchanged. "Do you ever regret asking us for help?" she asked quietly. Veltar considered the question carefully. In the years since the war, human influence had spread throughout the galaxy.